If I mention the brand Aesop, what thoughts come to mind? Maybe it's their uniquely designed stores, or maybe it's their amber glass packaging. Or as an e-com founder, you're probably thinking of the $2.5 billion acquisition when they sold to L'Oreal. Whatever thoughts come to mind, we can agree that Aesop has been incredibly successful, and the approach they've taken is quite a different one. And what we're going to go through in today's video is also something a little bit different than what we usually cover, where we usually focus a lot heavy on direct response and consumer psychology. We're still going to be talking about consumer psychology, but just in a different light. So I'm going to talk about 3 core pillars that Aesop have used to establish a strong brand, build loyal customers, and also build a ton of brand equity in the process. And all of this without the heavy direct response you usually see within the e-commerce space, okay? So before we actually dive in, why are we actually covering this? Well, I think it's important to look at different types of brands and understand how they got to where they are, okay? There's a lot of 8 and 9 figure brands that do extremely well at direct response and consumer psychology, and we cover a ton of those on my channel. But I think it's also useful to look at the brands that don't take that route, but still end up being incredibly successful and end up selling for billions of dollars. And understanding how do they do that, and what can we actually take and apply to our own brands? Okay, so that's really the reason why I create these videos, is to help e-commerce founders uncover and learn new strategies that they can apply to their own brands. I try to provide as much value and practical value in that, so you can actually take these things and apply it immediately. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Jordan Hayes. I run a marketing agency. We help e-commerce brands scale to 8 figures and multiple 8 figures through done-for-you marketing services. And we focus on new customer acquisition. We also have services that focus on retention marketing. If you are interested in things such as meta ad creative, running your meta ads, and really helping you scale new customer acquisition, this is exactly what my team does. There's a link to my website in the video description. You can go ahead, book a call. It's a 20-minute conversation about your brand to understand if there's actually a fit for us to work together and help you. We only work with a handful of brands, and we know the ones that we crush it for. So we'll be upfront if it's a no, but if it's a yes, we'll talk about next steps. So let's dive right in. Just some proof that I'm qualified to speak about, e-commerce brand growth. Just a refresh on Shopify dashboard for one of our clients last 30 days. So over 730K in revenue. So let's dive into the 3 core pillars. First, I want to speak about power of anti-performance branding. So Aesop built a globally scaled brand without relying on sales, urgency, or aggressive paid acquisition. Instead of optimizing for clicks and conversions, they've optimized for trust, experience, and identity. In a noisy e-com landscape, this anti-performance playbook is more powerful and more scalable than ever before, right? Think about when everyone zigs, you zag, right? That's kind of what Aesop did in this space, and it worked out very well for them. So let's actually break down what this means and the key insights behind this. So the first thing is no discounts ever. And Aesop reinforces value through restraint. And as a result, Aesop is reinforcing their value through restraint. So avoiding promotions signals confidence, and it also protects margin for the business. The takeaway here is build perceived value so strong that discounting feels off-brand. Now, I'm not saying that you don't have to discount. I'm saying that there's some brands out there, especially the more elevated brands, that don't like discounting. And that is completely okay. And you can build a very strong and successful brand by doing that, right? You don't always have the discount when you're an e-commerce brand. Does it help? Of course it does. And can you still build a very valuable, elevated brand when you discount? Yes, you can, of course. But it really comes down to the way in which you discount and the way in which you present your offers, okay? So maybe that's something we can cover in a future video. But moving on to the next part of this is product equals ritual, not transaction. Their positioning turns skincare into an experience, not a routine. So the takeaway here is to frame your product as a daily ritual or emotional investment, not just a utility, okay? Because what this is going to do is it's going to create a recurring purchase, right? The experience that the customer has from the first interaction, the first touch point for your brand, all the way through to actually using the product and receiving the product, the unboxing, that is all creating retention, right? It's all fueling the life cycle. A lot of brands, they think that the retention marketing, the life cycle marketing only happens once someone gets the product and makes the decision to purchase again. It actually happens from the very first touch point, because the very first touch point is basically the experience, right? The experience that the customer has all the way from seeing the ad to visiting the store to buying the product, like whatever it is, all those touch points, all those actions are building retention and building loyalty, okay? So just think about that when you're actually doing your marketing, okay? Next thing is long-term thinking wins. While many D2C brands obsess over CPA and short-term ROAS, Aesop has built compounding equity through brand depth. Now, this is extremely difficult because the landscape right now is that you should be focusing on CPA and ROAS, right? And look, I run a marketing agency. We're a performance marketing agency. CPA and ROAS is our language, right? And when we work with brands, we're optimizing those because we want our brands to be profitable. However, what I'm talking about here is you can take one of 2 routes, right? You can do the Aesop route where they have said, look, ROAS is CPA, we're not going to look at those right now. Okay, we're going to focus on building a strong brand that people want to be a part of, that people want to have in their home, with product quality that is insane, so that we know if a customer buys one of our products, even though they're expensive, because the brand is elevated and the perceived value of the product matches the price point, we know that if they try the products and they use the products, they're going to be customers for life. Okay, so yes, you can go down that route of building strong brand. Just know that it's going to take time. You need a lot more money to invest into brand at the beginning and suffer the short term of high CPAs and low profitability, really. Because building brand takes time, and it also takes a lot of effort, also takes a lot of financial investment as well. Okay? Now, the question of whether you can do both. Yes, of course you can. You can focus on CPA and ROAS in the short term and still build a strong brand. But you're probably going to have to do a lot of direct response to achieve those CPA and ROAS targets, but you can still elevate the brand and build brand in long term. A great example of this is Pros, right? Pros make custom hair care, and a lot of their ads are very direct response, a lot of UGC, a lot of consumer psychology, and then driving that traffic to conversion optimized landing pages and funnels. But you can also see that they built an elevated brand. And if you go to their Instagram, if you look at their website, everything is unified in terms of colors, in terms of style, right? And this is like the perfect balance that you want to try and achieve as a D2C first brand who wants to build an elevated brand and have the brand value be on the balance sheet when they're trying to sell. Okay, so that is just an important thing to consider when you're like weighing up these two things. Okay, it is possible to strike the balance, but it's not easy to do so, and it's going to take a lot of trial and error before you actually find that right balance. Okay, but I definitely think it's worth it. And actually, the brands that do scale to 9 figures and beyond are the ones that are able to strike this perfect balance because they build a lot of retention into the way that their brand looks and feels, and ultimately what the customer feels in terms of experience as well. Okay. The final thing on this first pillar is don't chase trends, build taste. Aesop didn't follow clean girl aesthetics or TikTok virality. They created their own lane. So the takeaway here is be the signal in a trend-saturated market. Build for timelessness, not virality. Okay. So this is a route that you can take where everyone else is doing these trends. Again, when everyone zigs, you zag. And what this does is it positions you as the black sheep, as the one that is not following the herd. And that's going to draw your line in the sand, and that is going to attract people, right? It's going to create polarity, and it's going to create something different that people are gravitating towards. So let's dive into pillar number 2, which is website and D2C experience equals editorial commerce. So Aesop's website isn't optimized like most D2C landing pages. It's clean, it's slow, it's elegant, and it doesn't scream buy now. But that's the point. The site is built like an editorial experience, creating space for reflection, story, and a sense of trust. It proves that selling without selling can be the most powerful conversion tool of all. So if we look at their website, of course, it follows the branding, right? But it's slow. Like the scroll itself is slow. The way the elements appear, the way that we have to like select and actually select products and actually go to the product pages and browse the website, everything is slow, right? Everything is kind of take a time, consider the products, consider what's right for you. And all this is reinforcing the brand and the experience that they want to create, okay? So the key insights right here, first of all, is minimal UX. So their product pages are structured like magazine layouts. They have large imagery, poetic language, and subtle calls to action, right? It's very different to your traditional D2C, very conversion optimized product page. And the takeaway here is to consider building collection-specific editorial pages for flagship products that tell a story first, right? And again, all this is to say, if you want to go down this route of more elevated branding, you have to consider some of these elements that we're talking about here. And you have to strike the balance, okay? So you can see here that they have these large images, right? There's no product image gallery for this one, right? Usually you'd see like 10 images that you can scroll through and learn more about the product infographics, which are great for conversion optimization. But here, you just see the product image, okay? You can see here there's not a lot of conversion optimized principles here about the product itself. It's very simple. And even in terms of customer reviews, there's no customer reviews for this product in particular, right? Just like a how to use and then just an image of the product itself, right? So very, very basic. Like anyone who's into CRO to look at this, you'll be like, this page is like so much optimization potential. But, the way that it is the point, right? That is what the brand is about. So again, they're building their own style, they're building their own lane, and everything matches, right? When you go to the store, like everything makes sense. So the next thing is the soft sell product descriptions. They're not hammering on features. Instead, they invite customers into a mood. So a takeaway here that you can apply is ditching generic product copy. Lead with emotion and philosophy before specs. And there's a lot to go in with this with consumer psychology as well, because consumers, they buy with emotion, right? They don't buy based on like the size of the products, the features. Like, yes, that is important and it's going to impact their purchasing decision. But what they need is they need to be emotionally bought into the product, okay? So you can see here, very simple product description. This gentle yet thorough pairing effortlessly polishes skin and lifts impurities, revealing a surface optimally prepared for hydration, right? So the language is a lot more complex, right? It's not simple. But again, this is the point, right? This is the brand. The next thing is the friction that they have on the website is intentional. There's no aggressive pop-ups. There's no urgency. You're meant to explore at your own pace, right? And the takeaway here is let the design and the copy do the work. Don't interrupt the experience with conversion gimmicks. Again, if you want to go down this route, okay? Do I recommend having an email pop-up? Yes, I do. And if you want to strike the balance like Pros, Pros is going to have an email pop-up that's going to give you something in return for your email address because they understand the power of actually building an email list, right? So again, you want to strike the balance. Pros is an amazing brand to actually come to and actually just understand what a brand is doing to be able to achieve the balance between brand and elevation, but also conversion optimized principles. So the next thing is the immersive navigation. You feel like you're browsing a beautifully curated gallery, not an online store. So takeaway is to revisit your site navigation and is it functional, but also emotional. So there's some examples here of Aesop's, we can see that, the imagery is just so elevated. And I think this actually goes a lot into conversion optimization because the quality of the imagery, the quality of the products, the quality of what the consumer sees on the website is 100% going to impact their purchasing decision. If the products look amazing, if the before and afters or whatever you're using look very strong, then that's going to definitely influence the purchase. And likewise, the opposite, right? If your product images are low quality, if they're grainy, then that's going to indicate a low quality product. You can see here, again, other elevated images. It looks like you're browsing a gallery, right? As said, other images right here are very interesting. And I'll show some more examples of imagery right here. So we can see these ones right here and, these ones right here. If we don't actually hover over any of the products, you can see these ones right here. Hair, right? Very interesting, different, right? And again, it just goes back into the brand. And finally, every detail aligns with the brand tone. From the packaging to the 404 page, Aesop's brand is felt, not just seen, okay? And that is the overarching principle. Finally, the third pillar is physical retail as brand content. So Aesop uses physical retail, not just for sales, but as a living, breathing extension of their brand. Each location is a designed experience, often created in collaboration with local architects, making every store a shareable moment and a trust signal. And this strategy blends physical presence with D2C power, reinforcing premium perception and closing the loop between content and commerce. So if you already have your own stores, your own locations, or you have any presence in retail, then this is going to resonate with you. If you are looking to expand into your own stores, into retail, then this is also going to be very important as well. Because as I mentioned, Aesop's stores, like the style of their stores is part of their brand, is a huge part of their brand because every store is unique. When you're in a mall and you see an Aesop store, like it stands out from the rest, right? It's different. There's something like, I need to go in and actually see what the store is about, right? Another one here is very different to this store, right? If we just compare this design with this design right here is extremely different, right? And, this one is in Miami. So maybe it's more like Miami based. And this one looks like it's somewhere in Australia. And again, it's mimicking the sea. Right? So you can see how everything makes sense. And even though the stores are dramatically different in terms of how they look on the outside, it still makes sense. Somehow it's still on brand, right? This one right here is in the UK, in London. And you can see that it matches the street, like the London street vibe, but it looks completely different to the other stores that are out there. But it just makes sense. So as we just saw, no two Aesop stores are the same, creating a global brand that feels intimately local. They're localizing the stores to the area and the location that they're placed in the store. And the takeaway here is consider how you can make physical touchpoints feel custom and community driven. Next thing is stores equals organic brand content. The architecture, the minimalism, the design aesthetic make their retail locations inherently shareable. The takeaway here is think of retail not just as distribution, but as visual marketing. You can imagine how much these stores impact the brand and also the marketing, the shareability of this content online, right? Just by having these stores that stand out. And it's very easy just to create a generic store and just copy that same format across the world. It's definitely easier. It's definitely probably less expensive. But again, Aesop is investing in the brand. Next thing is the in-store experience is all about product education. Aesop staff guide you through rituals and samples, creating emotional connection. The takeaway is to train your customer experience and your retail staff to be storytellers, not just sellers. Retail also enforces D2C trust. Seeing a beautiful Aesop store in New York or Tokyo build confidence when visiting the online store later. So kind of both of these blend into one, right? The takeaway is don't separate your channels, make them complement and reinforce each other. If you have physical stores, that's going to help with the online sales, and the online ads that you run are going to help with in-store sales, right? So everything kind of everything flows into each other. And especially when we're talking about organic content as well, like we just spoke about, having a store creates for endless kind of content that you can produce, right? For your Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, okay? Finally, global scale with boutique energy. Aesop has over 400 stores, but each one feels like a niche boutique. And the takeaway here is to scale your brand, but preserve intimacy through design, tone, and interaction. So Aesop is huge, but somehow still feels small, right? It still feels intimate. And it comes down to localization, right? When you're expanding into another country, even a city, town, being able to localize your brand and your messaging and the way that your store looks to those locations is incredibly powerful as an incredibly good recipe for success. Okay, so this is what I wanted to cover about ASOP, and hopefully there's a lot of different stuff here that is, what you're used to seeing online about, performance-driven hacks and tactics and funnels and offer structures. That stuff is great. I have a ton of videos on my channel going through those. I'd recommend checking those out as well, so you can start to build, have a vision in your mind of the brand that you want to build. Brand and building brand is more important than ever. And it's going to allow you to charge more than your competitors. It's going to increase customer loyalty. It's going to improve brand equity and a lot more benefits, okay? But it is an investment and you have to be thinking long-term, right? So hopefully this is helpful. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, if you are looking for a partner who has built e-commerce brands to 8 figures and multiple 8 figures before, and that is something that you want to do, then there's a link just below this video in the YouTube description. You can go to my website, you can book a call with me, we'll chat about your business and see how we can help. All right, that's it for this one, and I'll see you in the next video.